Battle of Okinawa, Operation Iceberg, April to June 1945. It was the final, bloodiest chapter of the Pacific War. An armada of ships, a landscape honeycombed with tunnels, and a defense so desperate it felt like the end of the world. 50,000 American casualties. It was a meat grinder where victories were measured in inches. But today, we aren't talking about the generals or the strategy. We're talking about the men who went into that firestorm without a weapon, the medics, the ones who looked at the deadliest killing zone in the Pacific and decided that their duty was to heal, not destroy. We're going to start here with Desmond Doss, a native of Lynchburg, Virginia. He's a conscientious objector, and although he was eligible for a deferment because of his shipyard work and his pacifist religious beliefs, he enlisted on April 1st, 1942. He's a man who refused to carry a weapon and infuriated his commanders. He endured the scorn of his peers and stuck to his conscience. In May 1945, he's company aid man when the 1st Battalion assaults a jagged escarpment 400 feet high. When troops gained the summit, a heavy concentration of artillery, mortar, and machine gun fire crashed into them, inflicting 75 casualties and driving the others back. PFC Doss refused to seek cover and remained in the fire-swept area with the many stricken, carrying them one by one to the edge of the escarpment, and once there, lowering them down on a rope-supported litter down the face of a cliff to friendly hands. He didn't fire a shot, but he saved an estimated 75 men, lowering them one by one down the face of that cliff while bullets kicked up the dust around his feet. He proved that you don't need a rifle to be the most dangerous person on the battlefield. Dangerous to the enemy because he wouldn't let his brothers die. And he's not the only conscientious objector to receive the nation's highest award for valor. Two more medics will do the same in the Vietnam War. We'll be doing a deep dive into pacifists and get further into PFC Doss in a future episode. Let me know below how you would feel serving next to a pacifist or conscientious objector. PFC Desmond Doss wasn't alone in that commitment on that island. Let's meet Robert E. Bush. He's only 18 years old. He's from Tacoma, Washington. He's a hospital apprentice first class. While serving as medical corpsman with a rifle company in action against enemy Japanese forces on Okinawa, Bush is fearlessly braving the fury of artillery, mortar, and machine gun fire from strongly entrenched hostile positions. Bush constantly and unhesitatingly moved from one casualty to another to attend to the wounded falling under the fire of the enemy's savage attacks. In the heat of the assault, he crawled through a murderous barrage to treat his men. Even after being blinded in one eye and riddled with wounds, he refused to stop, eventually picking up two discarded rifles to fight off the enemy himself. He's credited with 6 enemy kills. He refused medical treatment and attempted to walk back to the aid station, where he finally collapsed and received the medical treatment he needed. He was the youngest recipient of the Medal of Honor in World War II, a testament to a kid who grew up in the span of a single afternoon. And sometimes the price of that mercy was often the ultimate sacrifice. Next, we're going to talk about two young medics that paid the ultimate price to preserve the life of their fallen brothers in arms. Meet William D. Halliburton, Jr. from Canton, North Carolina, pharmacist mate second class. On May 10, 1945, while serving with the Marine Rifle Company in the 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, 1st Marine Division, during the action against Japanese forces on Okinawa, he dashed into an open, fire-swept field to reach a Marine who had been cut down. Moving steadily forward despite the enemy's merciless barrage, he reached the wounded Marine, who lay furthest away, and was rendering first aid when his patient was struck for a second time by a Japanese bullet. Instantly placing himself in the direct line of fire, he shielded the fallen fighter with his own body and staunchly continued his ministrations, although constantly menaced by the slashing fury of shrapnel and bullets falling on all sides. Alert, determined, and completely unselfish in his concern for the helpless Marine, he persevered in his efforts until he himself sustained mortal wounds and collapsed, heroically sacrificing himself so that his comrade might live. And finally, Fred F. Lester. He's from Downers Grove, Illinois, hospital apprentice first class. He's serving as a medical corpsman with an assault rifle platoon attached to the 1st Battalion, 22nd Marines, 6th Marine Division. And during the action against the Japanese forces on Okinawa on June 8, 1945, he crawled out past the front lines to reach a fallen Marine. Hit twice by enemy fire, he refused treatment for himself. Realizing that his own wounds were fatal, he staunchly refused medical attention for himself, and gathering his fast waning strength with calm determination, coolly and expertly directed his men in the treatment of 2 other wounded Marines, and succumbed to his wounds shortly thereafter. Completely selfless in his concern for the welfare of his fighting comrades, he died with his boots in the mud and his mind on his team. And that reminds me of Charles Averill on Hill 487 in Korea. If you haven't seen our episode on Charles Averill and how he sacrificed himself for his platoon, go back and take a look. You'll find that same protect your brother attitude there. Doss and Bush both lived to receive their medals from President Truman in October 1945. Halliburton and Lester, brothers Bob and Joe Halliburton, were presented in 1946 in Miami, and Fred Lester's mother and father were presented the same year in Downers Grove. They represent the thousands of others who never got to hear the applause. They gave everything they had for the men beside them. These were the medics of Okinawa. When the world was at its darkest, they were the ones who kept the light of humanity alive. Hey, I want to hear from you. Is there a story of a medic or a corpsman in your own family history that needs to be told? Drop a comment below and let me know. Let me know who we should be honoring in the next episode. Hey, please share and subscribe. My name's Kenny. This is Gallantry in Action. I'll see you next time. Stay legendary.